everyone, welcome back. I'm Linda, the scrapbooking photographer, and today I'm joining in on two different hops. One is for the Stamping While It's Hot team, and that is organised by Brianna from My Life on Paper and Tara, the paper snob. And the topic this month for Stamping Like It's Hot is to stamp with an ink pad directly onto the paper. I have been quite apprehensive about doing this. I have done so much practice with it, I've nearly used up all my ink pad. The other hop that I'm joining in on is the Paper Crafting YouTubers hop for December, where the topic is December traditions. So I'll show you the photos that I'm using. Every December I get my dogs posing for their Christmas photo. Now these were taken in 2021 in our front yard. At that stage we just had Pippa and Gracie. Gracie was about 18 months and Pippa was about 7. So at that stage, and still, Pippa has never put a foot wrong. She's been absolutely delightful and perfect since the day we got her. Gracie has character, let's put it that way. And she makes up for Pippa's perfection, but absolutely delightful as well. So the pair complement each other very well. Now, of course, we've got the third one with Lulu, who is a little bit like Pippa, I have to say. But anyway, so this year I'm organising a photo shoot with the three of them, but I haven't quite done it yet in time for this video. So I'm working with photos from 2021. So we did a couple of shots that day. We did some under the tree with a few decorations in the tree, and then we went in front of the rose garden. Now Gracie, being Gracie, found a stick and decided she had had enough of posing for Christmas photos. So I'll just sit here and chew my stick and you can do whatever you like. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that one on this page or just these two. But anyway, that's our Christmas or our December tradition that I'll be working with today for the Paper Crafting YouTube hop. So I'll just pop those to one side now. I'm also working on a mood board from Soul Scrappers, and the colours that I'm going to be using are evergreen, shortbread, candy apple, white daisy, and gold. Now the gold provided another little challenge because I have had this in my stash for probably 6-8 years maybe, and I have never used it. So today I opened it and it's kind of set a little bit. I think when I first bought it, I liked the way that you could dip the sponge in and slide it across a stencil, but because I haven't used it, when I dipped it into the ink today, it just kind of sat on top. So I'm going to use a spatula. So yet another reason for procrastination. Anyway, let's get on and see how it all comes out. The first thing I'm going to do is take 1/2 inch off two sides of the white daisy to give me 1/4 inch around the outside that I can use as a bit of a frame with that evergreen underneath when I'm finished. But I'll put the evergreen cardstock to one side for now because I'm going to use the evergreen ink on the white daisy. So by placing a corner of the ink pad on the corner of the cardstock, I'm just twisting it around to give that circular effect in the corners. The reason I'm going from both sides is because it's darker on the edges and I want it to be relatively even. So then cleaning up the mat with a wet wipe and a paper towel. That doesn't take too long to dry, but while it's doing that, I'm just going to go around the outside with this Spectrum Noir gold pen. Now the nib is sort of like a paintbrush, so I can divide it around the cardstock and just get a gold rim all the way around the outside. And that will blend well, I think, with what I'm going to do next. So there's a bit of a close-up of the effect that it has. And the next thing I'm going to do is use this paint that I was talking about before, and you can see that it is quite sort of set.
So using a stencil, I'm going to dip my spatula in and just spread it over the stencil to give us some gold effects in the corners. It's spreading quite easily and I quite like the effect it has, so now that I've used it once, I'll probably use it again. I also have a charcoal coloured one too, so I'll start thinking about what I can use that on. So I'll go around all four corners adding the gold stencil, and just while I'm doing that, I'll remind you that this is a hop, well, two hops in fact. So I will put a link in the description below to the other creatives that are working on these links so that you can watch them too and get some inspiration. And just remember to give some love back by liking and subscribing to their channels if you like what you see. So I'm just about finished on these corners, and I am going to put this piece of white daisy to one side to dry once I'm finished, because it will take a little time to harden up. And while that's drying, I'll get the next piece ready to go on the page. So I'm not sure if you've used Close to My Heart embossing folders before, but you can see at the top there's a hinge there. And if you cut a piece of cardstock as wide or narrower as the gap that's at the top where that hinge is, then you can thread it through and emboss it. So I'll show you what I mean. So I've just lined it up there, and get the cuttle bug out and I'll wind it through the first time, and then I can just thread it through a bit further to emboss a bit further down. Now on some embossing folders it works better than others. This one doesn't have a matching pattern, but it's still easier to do it in one piece, even though I'm going to cut it up into 4 individual pieces. But if, for example, the embossing folder was just dots or wood grain or something like that, then it works really well. So once I've got that all finished, you can see how it's a nice long piece of embossed cardstock. So I thought what I'd do is put the stamp pad directly onto that as well and see what effect it has. Now I have had a little practice of this before I came on camera, so I'll show you the difference. This is the embossed side and that's the debossed side. Now I really like the embossed side where the ink goes onto the raised pieces, and if I slide it along from both ends, then it's a little bit more of an even coverage of the ink. So then I'll clean up the mat, and then I can trim this to the way I want it. First up, I'm going to cut it in half lengthwise so that I've got 2 even size strips, and then I will cut it along the places where those joins were so that what we've got is the best parts of the embossing. Then I'm going to frame those with some candy apple. So I'll cut the candy apple strips just slightly wider than the embossed pieces, and then I can stick those together a bit later. Jumping back to the main page, now that it's dry, I want to add a big circle of candy apple in the middle, and I've just used those pieces of paper across the middle to get a bit of a start going so that I had the right distance, and then just swishing the stamp pad around gives me this circle, and there are little bits of threads of ink coming off the outside, so I quite like the haphazard look to it. And then when I've stuck these pieces of embossed cardstock onto the candy apple, I can start to arrange them on the page. Now because I've got the gold edge on there, I want to come in just a fraction so that I'm not interrupting that gold trim. And I'm using the Versamat just to line things up so I get them in the middle. Remembering, of course, that I have cut 1/4 inch off each side. So I'm just going to mount the photo, and I'm going to end up only using one photo in here. So I'll mount that in the shortbread. And because it's going over the top of the embossed papers, I'm using some foam tape to raise it up a little bit so that it doesn't get squashed, or it doesn't squash the embossing. I'll do the same down the bottom for a little journaling box with an outline in the shortbread, and then the white cardstock on top, and again raising it on the back with some foam tape. Now once I've stuck it down, I do realise that I should have done the gold trim around the white, so I unstick it and do add that gold pen mark around the outside. So then it comes down to the title. Now this alphabet I really wanted to use, but because we've got a low G and a high L, it just took up too much width. So I changed to this alphabet, and I can bring a little bit of green in with that, with the block on the half and the bottom half. So I'm just going to use a title of Our Girls and make 3 separate little squares. I'll cut these out and go round the outside again with the gold pen so that I have 3 different pieces for the title. I think I'll put Our Girls at the top and then the date 2021 down the bottom of the page. Again, I'll use some foam tape for that piece that's going across the embossed paper, but the other piece needs the foam tape on one end, and then it's the other end is being stuck to the emboss, so I'm just using the tape runner. And the 2021 can go straight over the top of everything down the bottom there. As a final touch, I'll add some gold glitter gems around the title and also on the journaling box, which I will complete before the close-up photos go up at the end of the video. So just before I finish, of course, I need to attach the whole page to the green cardstock to give us that frame effect. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen, and perhaps it's enough to subscribe to my channel. You would be most welcome to join me on my journey. Happy crafting, everyone.